Well, it's been a pretty interesting week for me. Very difficult week for me. This past week was just did not have a lot of great days on the water for me personally. So I hope it was very different for y'all if you got the opportunity to fish this past week. The big moon that was in play all since I guess past this last weekend all the way through this upcoming week or this past week, should I say? Uh, Tough days, very tough days on the water. Not a lot of bites, not a lot of opportunities. Just had to really grind every day that we were on the water. So, a couple of days, rain was factored in there too, but that's just part of it. And it looks like this upcoming week's going to be more of the same, but we're on the backside of the big moon, so hopefully that will allow some more bite opportunities to move our way. So we spent a little time up here on the second chain, uh, just kind of working around this shell in the mud in this area up here. Found a few fish. Like I say, it was not a lot of great opportunity this past week. Just really just tough grinding days out here, and we just like I say, we just worked around this. Did more moving than anything else, which I typically do not like to do, but situation dictated that for us. So we just tried to hit a lot of locations to see if we could pull out, two or three, four fish in any given location, and that really was not the case. I mean, it was a grind just to catch one or two. Uh, Not that there wasn't fish available, just not a lot of fish that were interested in eating what we had to offer. So trying to figure out that little puzzle this past week was more difficult than I kind of realized that it was going to be. So once you kind of settle into that, then you just kind of figure out and see what you can do to make those fish eat in and around either your bite frames, whether that was a major or minor that you got to work. Of course, as the week progressed, we had their minors setting in the morning, and then of course we had the minor rising in the afternoons. But we didn't spend any time in the afternoons doing that, so it was kind of put our eggs in one basket with that moon set, and then of course the midday major. That's where we were trying to grind really hard, and in between those bite frames, there was few and far between for me. But like I say, we spent a little time here on Ayers Reef, here on the island, Ayers Island, right here up on the shoreline. That and just kind of worked. We worked shell, we worked grass, we worked mud, we worked cuts, we worked guts, trying to just entice and trying to get a few bites here and there. Like I say, and it was just a very difficult week. We primarily stuck with the burner shad, mirror lure little johns. We stayed with a small profile, especially with that big moon in play. So just trying to entice these fish to eat. We, ever so often we throw in just a little bit bigger bait. So we'd put the original size down south on. We'd put the supermodel on. We put the knocking tails on the 4 inch. We did the Little John XL. Worked that. A little bit of top water. Just not a lot of production. But that said, those days, those weeks like that, and as we are now into our full blown summertime pattern, there's going to be days it's going to be that way. You just have to do your very best to try to figure out what the answer is to the puzzle. Didn't do a very good job of that this past week. Limited success, as I've said. But these were the areas that we worked. Again, shorelines. We were, primarily fishing in thigh deep, waist deep water. We had a lot of extra water come in. Big Moon was pushing some more water in there for us, as opposed to the beginning of the week when there wasn't as lower tides. But then, of course, the middle of the week, and as we got into the week this past weekend, we had more water in the system. But these were the areas that we kind of worked. And that's what we're trying to stick with. Worked this outer edge. We even, as much as I don't like to do it, like to drift fish, we even try to drift on these outer edges where these rocks and where these areas of this boundaries are, all the way out here on False Live Oak, all around here on the inside and the outside of the rocks there, just to see if we could find some fish that have pushed up in and around that. And like I say, and that was very limited success. Even ran over here into Mustang, weighted that. Not a lot of productivity in there as well. It just really a grinding week. Instead of a grinding day, it was a grinding week just to try to locate and try to get fish to eat for. So we hit a lot of different areas, covered a lot of water this past week in different locations. But like I say, that said, we're on the backside of that big moon now. We're in our transition wild card days, so hopefully we will get some more opportunities this upcoming week. But it looks like, again, we've got more potential rain in our forecast, so address that accordingly if you're getting to fish this upcoming week, and see if we can't get a few more bites. So as y'all know, we'll get up here again, latter part of the week. Sherman's, we had a lot of water that came in, from Wednesday through the weekend. A lot more water came into the system. So when that happens, I love the back lake fishing. Get in here to Sherman's, Jaybird Point, that lake that's there. Worked on the back side of the shoreline, worked the inside of the shoreline, worked the little back lakes that were back in here. Again, not a lot of bites, not a lot of opportunity. A lot of boats moving around, pushing, running over. Like I say, it seemed like our best opportunity when we found fish, or when we caught fish in a limited supply, it was all in that, especially the latter part of the week, was that minor setting. And then once that set in the bite frame, then it went back to straight grind. We worked the outside, the shoreline out here. Terrific grass out there, by the way. If you fish, and we get down into Spalding, I like all these back lakes that are back in here. We jump back on these locations. Just waded all those, and some of these you can just walk across the land and get into the next back lake. And we did that on a couple of these, like this one here, and then we jumped over into this just to save a boat ride. Came back up this way, got back in this little back lake, back in here. Again, just very, very limited opportunities, just not a lot of interest from fish, just not wanting to do anything. And again, just putting that puzzle together was really difficult. We thought we kind of had a plan of action for us, staying with the smaller profiles just to entice a few bites, and it really didn't happen for us. But again, when you have these type of opportunities, you got to take it from a learning standpoint. Even though it was a tough catching week for me and for clients, you just learn from that and those experiences that you take away. And so the next time that something like that starts to kind of trigger, starts to happen, then you can have a little bit better game plan in play that'll trigger more bites. So, like I say, we threw all different size profiles, lengths, colors, top water baits, even threw a few suspended baits. But again, it was primarily the down south burner shad, the mirror lure Little John, the knock and tail in there in the 4-inch. They do have a smaller version of those. When we had the right kind of water, just the clarity of the water, just went with those little bit clearer baits, if you will. And of course, if we had some little bit dirtier water, we were throwing a little bit darker baits, just to see if we could get something going. And we even came around the point here at the fin, these little areas here on the back side of all that, and then of course a little shell bar that's right here in Carlos. And of course you've got Belding Reef that's way over here. We even worked around that. Found a few fish, just not great numbers. So I was happy to get past this past week, just from the just tough days on the water anyhow. But we threw the Bone Diamond, we threw White Ice, we threw Purple Rain, the Truth in the the purple and silver flavor from the Mirror Lure Little Johns. We Water Twisted Tea, Big Papa, all the ones that we've been throwing have been consistently catching fish on those colors and profiles. They just weren't having much of it this past week. So then we started throwing a few little smaller suspended baits to see maybe if that profile changed. The Soft Dines, some Mirror Dines. Pav Lures has a bait that's very similar to those as well, even through that. Through some of the Coastal Brew. Because we threw a big arsenal this past week just to get bites. So there was really no rhyme or reason why a particular fish, they were eating whatever they were eating. So we caught fish on several different profiles, but majority of it was smaller. And I'll continue with that this upcoming week, and just to see if we can't transition away from this big moon and get into these wild card days or transition days, see if we can't get that bite to come back. Out here on Copano Reef, fish are starting to show up. Temperatures, they're getting into the mid 80s, starting to creep, starting to get up there to the upper 80s. So we're really starting to target reefs now. So we just went out here and it's too deep to wade it. So we just kind of drifted across it to see if there's some fish. And again, not a lot of opportunities, but we did catch a few fish off of it. And then we got up here on the shoreline and just waded all this all the way up here to Mission. Got to these areas in here on either side there in the North Pass area, and just kind of worked. There's a little bit of shale that's on these points that are here, especially on the inside around these areas. That's wadeable. Of course, if you get a little further back, it gets much more mushy. It's much more difficult to wade. On this point over here, worked on the outside shoreline, a little bit more hard packs, a little scattered grass, a little scattered shell that was in there. Again, not a lot of opportunities, not a lot of bites. Get on the little cut through, got on the back side of these and just kind of worked that. You got little scattered shells, pads that are here and there. Then we got to the back to where the Mission Bay comes into Mission River. Worked that back shoreline into the Mission Lake area, around the mouth, got up into the lake area as well, and just kind of worked inside of that. I think we may have caught a couple of redfish out of there and some dink trout. But again, not great numbers by anything. But we just really focused on those majors and the minors, because that's, we had our minors early in the day. Majors was midday. So it took 2 bite frames to try to get some decent fish in the boat or our wading deal. So like I say, there wasn't a ton of opportunity. But again, working just different areas gives you different options. And that's what you get up here in Mission. Of course, you can fish all the little scattered reefs that are out there. Like I say, the fish are on these reefs now. They're showing up on it. We just get them to eat. You'll have some pretty good days because, Mission Bay's got a lot of scattered little reefs that are in there. Across this far shoreline, the north shoreline, as I like to say. All that, you can wade that. Just be careful if you're getting out there more in the middle. It gets really, really soft. Like I say, we spent time on that back shoreline where the Mission River comes in, just working that. Just again, same baits where we've been using everything else. A little top water in there. All the down south in both the burner shad and the original size and the multiple flavors that I've already mentioned. We were throwing them in these waters as well. The Mirror Little Johns and the XL, the soft dines, Mirrodines. Through that, just again, it was just a tough week. Knock and tails. Basically, in the knock and tail, if I remember correct, we threw Rogue, Greenback, and the Heavy Metal were the 3 main ones that were being used at different points in times. Again, the Pav lures. In the darker, the greens in that. And again, they have what I mentioned a minute ago, they have a small little, similar to what a soft dine is, just in his style bait, which is a little subsurface. It does pretty well. Caught a few fish on it, but just consistency was just not there. Any given day, it was just not there. Your bite frames were extremely short. And as we would get toward that major time frame, the water temps on some days they're starting to warm up pretty decently. So it almost was like a late July, August bite. So you get your bites early, and then by the time we got to mid-morning, 10-ish, man, the bite just shut down completely. So there's a lot of, again, as I've said, there's a lot of grinding this past week. So, but again, the learning experience, it gives you more ammunition for later on down the road. Whenever those situations or circumstances come back up, you have a better opportunity to work your way through it and be a little bit more productive, even though those time frames are difficult, but it's going to happen. So we know that there are better days ahead, so we just kind of chalk those up and just get ready to look forward to the next day and pay attention to what our weather patterns are. There's what I have noticed, a lot of boats, especially when you get around the weekends, not so much during the week. So that will probably be a little uptick now that we're in the summertime pattern. We'll probably start to see a lot more people during the week, but the weekends, lots of people on the water, Saturday, and Sunday, especially this past week, a week before, big tournaments. It seems like there's something tournament going on somewhere within the area, so it always adds a few more boats to it. So just be aware of that when you're out. Again, patience and grace when there's a lot more boats on the water. Everybody's trying to get to a location and try to find and catch their fish. So just be patient. Make sure you have multiple locations lined up if it doesn't work out in a particular spot.